Smash that like button like a boss, and let's get started with some law and disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
Pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care.
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Well, you'll be glad to know a big crime ring busted in the city, and while its roots may extend back to the city, its crime spree went on across the Bay Area. Yeah. South Bay, East Bay, North Bay, Marin. 8 charged with felonies for their roles in an organized retail theft ring that targeted those Apple stores in the Bay Area. Do you remember the over $1 million worth of merchandise that was taken from all those different locations? There was a sense of terror about it. Well, the Attorney General in California, Rob Bonta, announcing charges against 8 men. And those charges include conspiracy to commit retail theft, organized retail grand theft, in the amount of over $500,000. So I mentioned some specific charges because as you stack them up, they could be harder and harder to avoid. I mean, real prison time. It all happened between August of last year and January of this year. Bay Area stores that were targeted included stores in Santa Clara, Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, San Francisco, and Monterey counties. Stores in Yolo, Orange, San Bernardino, San Diego, and Riverside counties also were hit. So this covered the entire state. That's why Bonta's weighing in. The suspects would enter the store in minutes or seconds. They would grab merchandise while others in the gang held off employees. Drivers would be ready in a waiting vehicle to make the getaway. Finally, they busted that ring up. Meantime, on the other side of town, the guy accused of firing into that San Francisco synagogue will be facing hate crime charges. They've decided to tack on the hate crime charges to 51-year-old, do they have an ID on him? Dmitry Valery Mishin is his name. He's being defended by the public defender's office. He is being hit with 2 felony counts and 6 misdemeanor counts of being prosecuted as hate crimes.
Good.
He fired blank rounds into a Richmond District synagogue. What's that?
I think that's good, right? I mean,
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that kind of mayhem, I think, has to be met with very strong treatment from the law. Yeah, totally agree. Speaking of strong treatment from the law, the guy who was carrying the Confederate flag on January 6th, he was walking through the Capitol amidst other rioters. He has been sentenced. 3 years is what he's getting. Kevin Seafried is his name. He was brandishing the flag during the Capitol riot. He's a drywall installer when he's not at riots at the Capitol. And the U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden called it deeply offensive to use a Confederate flag as a weapon against an African-American officer. So it was actually used, apparently, as the rioters entered the building to strike officers. McFadden said, and this is again, McFadden's the judge, even putting aside the racist connotations, which you said you did not intend, it was appalling that a symbol of secessionism was used to threaten an officer protecting our democratic process. Seafried said, again, he's the guy with the flag, that he did not intend to represent white supremacy or insurrection, merely a spirit of protest. I never meant to send a message of hate, he said in court. He apologized to the Capitol police officer, saying that he, quote, was deeply sorry for his part in the January 6, 2021 incident. In sentencing papers, so this is his public defenders, they file sentencing papers to say, hey, look, my client was compromised by this, or he was talked into it by that guy. You know, it's all that whole dance. In sentencing papers, the public defender said that he grew up in a poor, abusive household and did not understand the meaning of the banner that he held. He was taught that the flag was a symbol of an idealized view of Southern life and Southern heritage, is what they wrote. He came to Washington, and this I think is something of real interest maybe in this story, because I'm always curious, these January 6th people, if they're one-offs, if they, jumped in the car like,
Woohoo! Let's go.
yeah, like frat boys might go to Vegas or something.
Mhm.
Or if it was, as we've learned, this is part of a real organized thing for over many months.
Mhm.
Seyfried came to Washington on January 6th with his wife and his 21-year-old son Hunter. Now, you may remember now, because we reported it here, Hunter and the wife were sentenced. Hunter got 2 years, and his son's girlfriend, I think, also was sentenced in that as well. Anyway, he and Hunter marched with the crowd from Trump's speech on the ellipse to the Capitol. And he says, "I wish that I'd stepped up and put a stop to this." I'm sorry, that the wife said that, but I did not. She has since left her husband. "I lost my son and I lost my wife," he said in court. "I made a terrible mistake and my family has suffered because of it." The father and son climbed over a wall of the Capitol to a lightly protected landing on the Senate side. That's where rioters were smashing those windows. They climbed through, among the first to enter the building and confront police inside. The elder Seyfried, again, the guy carrying the Confederate flag, the elder Seyfried jabbed repeatedly at one of the officers with a flag, chased him up a flight of stairs, and then the officer said that Seyfried refused to leave and demanded to know where the lawmakers were. When the officer was joined by reinforcements, Seyfried berated the officers for, quote, protecting liars and thieves. Now, his defense attorney said he was only repeating the words of those around him. Anyway, he is going away, my friends. He's going away 3 years.
Do you believe that? Do you believe that he didn't really know what the symbolism of the Confederate flag was? I mean, it's 2023. I get that we live in a different area, that we're not immersed in the South, that maybe to some people it's a symbol of, I don't know, what do you want to, Southern, what did he call it? Southern life? The Southern
Yeah,
way?
Southern, right, cultural
Oh,
lifestyle or whatever it is, right,
but you
exactly.
can't not know that it also is a symbol of oppression for people. A symbol of, let's keep slavery around. Woo! So
Yeah.
how do you not know that? How do you not know that when certain people see someone coming with a flag that looks like that, it's frightening.
There was so much wrong with what he did that it's interesting that the Confederate flag does grab the headline, but it does reflect the strong undercurrent of racism that really, I think, was a big part of who those people were. The Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, these are white supremacist groups. And so the Confederate flag is not just an incidental element.
Mhm.
It oddly really does reflect a lot of where the quote philosophy of rebellion is coming from. And so it is ridiculous that he doesn't know what I think he was carried along by this rage and this resentment and this anger. And there are a lot of other people who are sharing that rage and resentment and anger. And when you get them all together, there is a herd and crowd mentality, a mob mentality. But no, he brought that Confederate flag to that rally and to that riot for a reason. And it's many of the reasons that you say. Yeah. But he's going away for 3 years. So he can share his stories and his explanation with those in the joint. The Mississippi House, speaking of something weird and maybe, well, I think you'd have to say it's, I'm always trying, I don't know. Look, you talk about a racist past, it's a racist present. The Mississippi House, and this you'll see why this is in Law and Disorder, they passed a controversial bill that would form a court system. You understand, the judges and prosecutors in Mississippi are elected. Okay. So this is a court system that they're going to form. The legislature just passed this, of unelected judges and prosecutors to preside over the city of Jackson. Now, Jackson, Mississippi is majority black. Black residents make up over 82% of the city's population. The bill would what's that?
What?
Yeah.
They
So
want
the
to do
bill
what?
they will now, and they elect it, but the point is, instead of giving the city's majority black residents an opportunity to vote for judges and prosecutors in this new court, the Republican-backed bill is going to require government officials to choose who fills these positions. They'll just be cherry-picked, hand-picked. The court system would preside over district expansion, and the legislation would expand the Capitol Police Force. So it's at best a bad look that you have this white-dominated legislature, and this is a white-dominated crew that will be creating a separate mechanism, if you will, legal mechanism, court system of unelected judges and prosecutors to preside over a mostly black city. It's crazy. And that's happening in Mississippi, I guess, is really of no surprise.
So if I don't like the legal system where I live, I can just write a new bill to say, I don't like these judges, let's get new ones?
Not only that,
That's legal? I
new
can
ones,
do that?
well, you can keep those judges, but we're setting up a whole other court system.
Oh, man.
The bill's details include the state Supreme Court Chief Justice would appoint 2 judges, the Attorney General would appoint 2 prosecutors, the state public defender would appoint public defenders, and the Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner would have authority over the Capitol Police. They're all white people, everyone I just mentioned. It's just, as I say, at best a bad look, and I think more appropriately, it really smacks of racism. So, we'll see. The bill's sponsor doesn't even live in Jackson. It represents a majority white district in Mississippi, and yet he's putting forward this bill to. You'll remember Jackson, Mississippi, is where you can't drink the water because the water system. This is a community that already lives under a pretty, I'd suggest, a strong kind of oppression and lack of representation. So that's what's happening in Mississippi. It's a piece of insanity, I think you'd have to say.
Crazy. Yeah.
The Supreme Court, of the United States of America, finally, is under fresh pressure to adopt a code of ethics.
Oh,
What?
It's about time.
say.
Yeah. I mean, you have one justice in Clarence Thomas who refuses to recuse himself from cases that involve his wife. If you don't see the ethical conflict there, then you're sleepwalking through this entire process. That is I think, under increasing pressure, a prime example of some of what the Supreme Court is dealing with. And the idea that they are now praying with various conservative religious groups. Again, I have no problem with religion in America. I celebrate those who found such solace in religion. But these are lobbyist groups that are trying to get through various conservative, right-wing, activist, radical, you could even say, religious doctrine. And they are confabbing. I mean, I use the example of the Hobby Lobby, who they were, remember, they were dining with a Supreme Court justice months ahead of time, and then kind of getting the wink wink and the advance notice, really, that they were going to get a Supreme Court decision in their favor. Anyway, the Supreme Court now, they've for decades dodged these questions about conflicts of interest, saying essentially they're different. But mounting public pressure, and this is why I think conversations like this one, other YouTube channels, the conversations we used to have on KGO, it all creates enough noise that attention has to be paid to these things. Court sources have said that internal discussions, which date back to at least 2019, have been revived concerning some kind of code of ethics. The timing of any public resolution is uncertain. Some justices have been more helpful than others about reaching some consensus. But in an action that demonstrates the intensifying national concern over the justices' behavior, the American Bar Association's House of Delegates approved a resolution urging the High Court to adopt a binding code of ethics comparable to the code in place for lower court U.S. judges. So I'm hoping that something happens. The liberal judges have been far more open and warm to the idea than the conservative judges on the court, but that's the latest on that. And that, my friends, is Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Hey, thanks for the cute graphic. Our graphics designer from the North Bay. She kicks out those. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.